Welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce, episode 10. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
We made it to 10?
We made it to 10.
I'm the boyfriend, by the way, but we made it to 10?
You don't understand how much this means. It's not just an episode. It's a relationship. We made it to 10.
Wow.
Yeah, this is double digits. Now it's a commitment.
Well, I don't know about that.
Whatever.
So you've been married a few times, or a couple times.
Couple
My bad.
times.
My
That's
bad.
okay.
My bad. A couple of times.
Mhm.
So after your first marriage, did you learn anything from that experience?
Well, I'd like to think I did, but then I went and did it again right away.
But ladies and gentlemen, her history proves otherwise.
True. I can't even say that is accurate. Yes, it is. That is accurate. I mean, I did learn some things, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what those things are because now they're so long ago. But I went right into another marriage right after that. And I'd like to think that when I was going into my second marriage, I was thinking, oh, this is completely different than my first marriage. But then in so many ways, I see that my behavior and stuff hadn't changed. Yeah, the person I married is different, but I was still the same person. I was still doing the same things.
So are you saying that the potential demise of your two marriages were...
Me?
Yeah?
Well, I mean, I definitely had a role in it. There was only two of us. I can't put it all on the other person.
That's true, but
Yeah.
if you're bringing the same to both relationships and they both failed, and I'm not trying to get on you or anything. I'm just
I don't like the word failed. They just did it. They were meant to be, and they were meant to be over.
all right. Then let me rephrase the initial question.
Mm-hmm.
After your second marriage,
Yeah.
and you were divorced, how did you take that experience and use it to benefit you as you moved on to other relationships in your future?
Well, first of all, I stopped marrying everybody I dated.
What?
Well, first of all, I stopped marrying everybody I dated.
That helps.
That was a start. So I treated my relationships different. I didn't go into them thinking, okay, this is necessarily going to be super long term. And I just dated for a long time. I dated.
Were you one of the girls that thought everyone was like Prince Charming and going to ride off on the horse and live happily ever after? Were you one of those?
No.
You know they're out there.
Yes. No. I thought I'd probably be more like my parents, who got married at a fairly younger age in their early 20s or whatever, and things worked out for them. So I thought, oh, I met this person, we fell in love, this is what you do. This is how it is. Not like, oh, I'm a princess. Like I don't have that complex type thing. No glass slipper, nothing like that. I thought he was a great guy, obviously, or I wouldn't have walked down the aisle with him. I didn't take that lightly. But that's just, in my mind, that's how I saw it being. You get married, you have children, you do couple and family things, and that's how it is. And, well, that's not even close to how it turned out for me. But, like, fast forward to now, even through all the years, because my last, marriage ended, over a decade ago. And I spent a lot of time dating.
Almost 2 decades ago.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to say that, smarty pants. Whatever. Yes, almost 2 decades ago. And I've had all this time, and I'd like to say that I learned so much, and then, get into a couple of relationships here and there. And again, they end, and I'm like, what? So I had to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of work. And then I meet you, and, well, you're a lot of work. No, you're not a lot of work. I'm kidding. You're a piece of work, man.
I know that.
No, but I think now I'm finally at a place where I'm really assessing my life lessons, and not just so much as looking at them and going, oh yeah, I learned this or that, but now I'm actually making an effort to change my behavior, because you can learn things and say, oh, I did this wrong, or I did that wrong, or this happened or that happened, and then just keep doing that over and over as life goes on. The trick is to stop doing that. stop doing those things. And it's not just like one thing. It's not just this or, it's just behaviors and how you react to things or
Expectations, and
yeah,
there's a bunch
expect
of things that go in the
exactly
relationship.
all kinds of stuff. So I finally feel like I'm at a place in my life where I can really focus on changing those things and making adjustments to have a healthier relationship.
So you did learn something, and you are trying to use that information to help you with your future and current relationships.
Smart.
Mm-hmm.
Very careful how you worded that, boyfriend. So yeah, I would say so. I think is when you spend your entire life doing things a certain way and not realizing that doesn't serve you anymore. To undo that is a lot of work. It's an everyday thing. I have to be very conscious of it, of how I handle myself in situations and what my expectations are and what my goals are in a relationship, how I want to be treated, how I treat myself, how I speak to others, how I, you know.
Well, it sounds like you're very introspective, retrospective now, based upon your experiences and where you're at now.
Mhm.
Do you think everyone's like that though?
Um maybe at different points, maybe for some people I would like to think
I tend not to think that way.
well,
I don't think people are that introspective or that reflective on their own
maybe
choices.
not. And maybe they think they are, and then they turn around and do the same thing over. I mean, it took me a
It
while to figure
it
that
takes some
out.
serious life experience for you to be like, hey, I should re-examine these choices and think differently moving forward.
Yeah. And it because at first, to be honest with you, when these things after my first divorce, I thought, "Oh, well, my second husband, he's a totally different person than my first husband. So this should be okay." Well, and that didn't work out, and I'm like, "Well, maybe they were more similar than I thought." Fast forward years later, well, it's not about picking a different type of person. It's about me changing my behaviors and being a different person within my relationships.
Yeah, see, I don't think everyone. I would
Probably not everybody.
I would guess even most people aren't that, especially in today's age where it's all me, now. I
Right.
don't think most people are that reflective on their own issues, behaviors to be able to make better choices moving forward. But that's my own cynical viewpoint. That's
Well, I will
fine.
take that as a compliment. So thank you.
So, how does this relate to today's guest? Who do we got?
Well, today's guest is a good friend of mine from New York City. He's a stand up comic there. His name is Brian Barron, and he's been married and divorced. And he shares his experience with us as well as his relationships after. So I don't want to give it all away. I will let Brian tell his story without further ado, here we go. All right. So welcome, Brian.
Hi, Leanne. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And for everybody else, they're just hearing us. Probably that's good because, we're here in our pajamas.
Well, I hadn't washed my hair, so.
Yeah. Brian has a hat on. So cool. Well, of course, we're talking about divorce today. So I'll just start with an easy question for you. Where are you from? Where were you born?
Oh, easy. Okay, good. Born in the Bronx in the late 50s. Moved to Long Island as a young child. Spent almost 18, 19 years on Long Island. Then went to school in Florida. And then was like, nah, no Florida. Back to New York. That's into that. And I moved into Manhattan Brooklyn in 83, Manhattan in 1988 when I bought my first apartment.
Wow.
10 years in that location. I got married and my son was born there. Then downtown, south of the World Trade Center for about a year and a half and then divorce.
Wow.
Then I moved to Wall Street for another 10 years, and I left there in 2008 Brooklyn, 2008 to 2014, 2015, and now I'm back in Manhattan.
All right. Well, you've covered all of New York except Staten Island.
Yeah, you gotta take a boat.
Right. And Queens. You weren't in Queens either.
No, but I talked to a friend about the possibility of a roommate situation, and he lives in Queens.
So there was a possibility.
And the Bronx as well. Well, I was born there, so that would be like going home.
Oh, yeah, right. So when you've been in New York all year, so I'm assuming that you met your ex-wife in New York.
Absolutely. And some of the hot bar scenes that was going on in the late 80s, early 90s.
So how did you meet her? At a bar?
Absolutely. It was at a bar, and at that time you could still smoke cigarettes indoors.
That seems like such a long time ago, doesn't it?
Exactly. Well, she had a cigarette. She was like, I think I got pulled in. I think she set me up, but she had a cigarette in her hand and, kind of waving it around, and I had a lighter, and boom.
So that's how you got sucked in, is a cigarette lighting trick.
Yeah, I think women absolutely set out, little decoys, little keys rattling sort of thing to get your attention.
In here, I thought it was just making eye contact.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot too. True.
Right. It's like a cat. You make eye contact and it comes to you. It's the same with men. It's like, wow, what happened?
Exactly. That's what I mean. I think I got pulled in.
Right? We just have to remember, look away, look away. So you met her at a bar, and what ended up happening? You ended up dating for some time? Was it long?
Yeah. We had a lot in common. I mean, there were little things, and it's interesting looking back on it in retrospect. I've always believed that everything is there on like the first date.
Yes.
Everything someone's going to bring to the table is there on the first date. And,
okay, so here I have a question. So when you met her, now not knowing what you know now, but thinking about how you felt back then when you met her, how did you feel about her?
Oh, I felt great. I mean, there was a lot of good connections, and she seemed reasonable. She wasn't, there was a lot, it's interesting looking back. There was a lot going on in my life. And I think there was a lot going on in her life as well at the time. Mm-hmm. But it was like my feelings were like 8 out of 10. Now, you also have to remember, I was in my mid-30s, early mid-30s, like 34, 33, 34, 35, somewhere in that range. And I had kind of been like, I can't keep up this single scene.
I've heard that more than once. Yeah.
I can't be doing this crazy dating situation. But it's just like waking up and like, I got to get home. I have to get cab fare. I have to get on the subway at 7:30. I got shit to do today. That components of the single lifestyle.
Right.
So I suspect that I probably was blind to some of the things that were there at that time, simply because of all the other factors I mentioned.
Because you were seeking to settle down. You were looking.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. And there were many that it was like, oh, this one's a mess. This one's a wreck. What's next? This one's not even close.
What were some of the signs, now looking back, what were some of the signs that were obvious when you think about it now?
On the negative or the positive?
Both, yeah. What were some of the positives?
I mean, she was tall, she was attractive, she was professional.
Right.
She had a job. She laughed at all my jokes, and most of the time, it was easygoing. It didn't seem like a lot of work.
Yeah, which is important, really. So if it seemed like it was pretty easy, what were some of the flags you missed?
Oh, her relationship with her mother.
Uh-huh. What was that like?
Oh, please. That's you don't have enough time. We don't have.
It was that good, huh?
Yeah. No, looking back, I did not know that she had some medication issues. I'll call them that. In dealing with her stress and her anxiety, and a lot of medication that she took to get through daily.
To cope, right?
Yeah, and that became problematic as things developed, or at least I saw that. To this day, there's still a little bit of a drinking problem. There's a lot of things should be done this way. And in looking back, I was just like, I probably missed those.
Right. Or at the time, they either weren't as important to you. You thought they weren't that big of a deal.
No, you know what? I think it was more important to her. I tried to be, in my opinion, I tried to be who I was the whole time. And I think in the beginning, Robin was more accommodating. And she's like, okay, I'll go along with this. I'll go along with that. And then as things changed, that wasn't evident. Suddenly it was just like, well, you didn't have a problem with it before.
Right.
You know?
And then her true self maybe started showing through, like, I really can't deal with this type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's different when you're dating someone. It's easier to be like, well, that's okay. It's not a big deal. And then once you're living with somebody and you're committed, it's like, oh, that's a big deal. Like on a everyday basis, it changes things, right?
It does. I mean, it does change things. And some of the stuff I was fine with. I was like, whatever. She tended to be, not so much in that direction of just like, that's okay. I mean, we had a great apartment, Lower Manhattan, Battery Park City, overlooking the river.
Nice, yeah.
So yeah. It was a 3-bedroom, and I converted it to a 2-bedroom.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
So you put in some work and you made it what you guys wanted.
I destroyed the apartment.
Yeah.
I destroyed it. It was a condominium, so I didn't have to get board approval on anything. I chiseled out the entire kitchen floor and put in new marble. I tore down walls. I rebuilt bedrooms. I redid electric. At one point, I was chiseling on the concrete floor to hide an electrical outlet. And the doorman called and he was like, you doing any kind of work up there or anything? Like, no, everything's okay. Oh yeah, there's an illegal electrical outlet in the floor. That's the kind of shit in this apartment.
Right.
When it was all said and done, the apartment didn't look like anyone lived there, in the sense that it was so well appointed and so impersonal.
Really?
Yeah.
And so did you guys do that by design or because?
No, that's all her doing. I mean, even in our studio apartment, I came back one day and we had brand new carpet, fucking brand new custom made furniture. And I was like, okay. I was like, that might not have been the color I chose for the carpet, but what the fuck? Why not?
Wow. So you went through and you guys obviously like you put in a lot of work physically and emotionally into a relationship, right? So you were doing your part and making her happy and building this life together. Right. Was she doing the same?
Yeah. I mean, we moved forward in the studio apartment. We entertained people. My son was born there. We had a nanny very early on when he was born. She was a big part of, our ability to do this thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, we were both, doing the best we could on all cylinders.
So what happened? How did this fall apart?
That's a very good, complex question,
isn't it? Though.
Yeah, but it's tough. But it's simple because it's a simple question. Unfortunately, it's not a simple answer.
It never is. It's certainly not for me. Well, I guess it may be an easier way to answer it. Do you remember a specific point in time where you realized this was over?
Realize it was over, or I don't ever think there's a time where it goes from Okay, now it's over.
It's over.
But it's not a cut. I think it's like a gradual decline, and then suddenly it's okay.
Like this, we can't go back.
This is it. So I don't think it just happens. I don't think there's a deal breaker. I think there's an erosion of stuff, and I try to work this into a set.
Don't we all?
That I have, and it's like marriage is kind of like. Let me just see if I remember the line. It doesn't hit, but I just try to remember the line. Oh, do you want my opinion, or should I just agree with you?
Uh-huh.
That was kind of what I was getting. In other words, here's an example.
Yeah.
We had moved into the new apartment, Battery Park City, settling in. Everything's cool. Baby's down, and I'm doing the checkbook. We're cutting checks into the month, blah, 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 blah. And I say to Robin, I'm like, Robin, did you know that there's a program where we can like do our checks on the computer and just have them printed out over here? Now, this is got to remember that we're talking about 1998. Oh, no, we were there already. So it was like 97, 98, 99, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, somewhere in the 90s. When we had checks.
And she was like, well, I don't think we should do that. There's no need to do that. I don't think that's a good idea. I was like, okay, fine. Mm-hmm. 2 days later, she comes back from the office one day and she's like, I was talking to the guy. He was fixing one of our printers. And he's like, there's a program we can print checks on. I think we should look into this. I swear to God, Leanne. I was like, I talked about this 2 days ago.
Right.
Are you kidding me? What I found was that it was this creeping idea that men were kind of like stupid dogs, and anything because at this time, her mother, we had already had some drag out nasty battles with her mother and her narcissism, and the attitude that, men are stupid and dumb and never do the right thing sort of stuff. That turned out to be in the long term an ongoing thing with her and her mother. She has a very bad relationship with her mother, which in the beginning of our courtship, I had encouraged her to reconnect with her mother, which she had not talked to for like 2.5 years.
Oh, boy. And then she did.
Right. And she was like, my mother hasn't changed. And I ran into the teeth of that monster. And it was a contentious part of our early days of courtship and into the marriage and into the divorce. The contentious relationship between Robin, her mother, and how that sort of spins with everybody around them.
Wow.
Yeah. It's turned out to be just bizarre. At one point, let's just jump around a little.
Yeah.
At one point, we had, after 9/11, my son and I watched Tower 2 go down. His school was right across the street from World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go into the story on how I finally found him and blah, 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 blah. But the point was we both watched Tower 2 go down together. We ended up, like many parents in that area, putting Asher into short-term therapy.
Right.
Just to make sure that after this whole ordeal, I witnessed so on and so forth, that his head isn't screwed on wrong.
Absolutely. It's a smart thing to do.
So afterwards, everything's fine. A couple of years down the road, he still sees the therapist once a week, just for like a checkup from the neck up. That's cool. He relates to the therapist, which a therapist later told me, he relates to the therapist that his mom and my ex-mother-in-law, every time he does something that is not to their approval, they would say stuff like, oh, that's just like your father. Oh, you're acting like your dad. That's typical of your father.
Now, is this why you were still married?
No, this was after.
After the divorce. Okay, so now there's kind of
and now he's giving this feedback back to the therapist, and he's like, I don't like to hear that. I like my dad, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Of course, the therapist tells Robin, and I'm like, the fuck are you two doing? Hope you're not fucking this kid up.
Right. So going back, so she had this contentious relationship with her mother, and obviously you and the mother probably didn't get along, I'm guessing.
I gave her the fake smile, and I was like, fine. And if I was under her roof, whatever you say, Nancy, whatever you want.
Right. But your marriage ended up dissolving anyway.
Absolutely. But still, I mean, I still ran into her with apartments and other things, but I haven't, here's the other side of it. I haven't talked to Robin or seen her in probably, I'm going to say maybe 4 years now, maybe more. When at my son's high school graduation party with family, she decided to take a swing at me in the parking lot.
Oh.
Yeah. So I haven't really.
So how do you, okay, I have a few questions for you. Wow. No. Going back, like when you guys were going through your divorce, how were you feeling at that time about it being over?
A double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
On one side of it, well, I shouldn't say that. It's more like an 70-80. I was torn apart.
Right.
Because we were actively going through marriage counseling.
Mm.
We went through a variety of different counselors. We found what I believe to be a woman that my son sees kind of regularly now. I haven't seen Dr. Lynn in probably, I'm going to say 8 or 9 years. I suspect Robin is still seeing her. I don't know.
Right.
So in retrospect, she kind of saw it happening as a therapist, and she communicated to me in the post. So how I felt was that we were at least still moving forward.
But then all of a sudden this divorce came about.
What happened was there was some contentious. What happened was Robin tended to, instead of us kind of working through things on our own, she would say things like, well, we'll talk about this with Dr. Lynn next Thursday. Or I think we'll discuss this with Dr. Lynn. And I was just like, that's not what therapy's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be you and I trying to get through this, not saving it all up
for next week.
Thursday.
Right. Right.
Fuck is that? And that was another thing I found. She kind of like let things fester. You know what I mean?
That's
psychological.
Not good. Yeah. So, and you recognized it then, I'm guessing, that she was doing this.
Well, what happened was during some of the final therapeutic sessions, she just came out and said, look, I'm fine the way I am. I don't know why I have to change.
Right.
It could be paraphrasing it a little, but as far as she was concerned, she had done enough work in her life on her own that this is where she wanted to be, period.
And
there was a lot of Al-Anon books in the house. She suspected that her father might have sexually molested her. There was always questionable uncles and best friends in the house of her father. She wasn't sure about her father's sexuality. Her brother is going through that stuff now. So a lot of pent up, unresolved. She was
trying to work through her issues and
she had a lot of, that's, in retrospect, looking back, she was a woman who had a lot of internal demons, and, some of the aspects of how she tried to deal with them and cope with them the best she could affected our relationship and things moving forward.
Right. So how during this time, so she was working on herself and obviously and reading up on things and trying therapy, but what were you doing? How were you coping with the situation?
I mean, how was I coping with my own internal issues?
Well, you with the relationship and the divorce, how did you cope with it? What got you through it?
Afterwards?
During.
Well, during it was, there wasn't much of because most of my friends were single guys. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have really much of a support network. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, there was it was crazy. It was really crazy. And you have to remember that as you're going, when it's like the divorce, that's real personal. You're not running around talking to a lot of people about it. At least I wasn't.
Right.
Because I had to find a place to live. I mean, I had to I invested money in this apartment, and we bought this apartment together. Half the stuff in here and so on. So that is all racing through your mind.
Yeah.
And you put on top of that, we had, I guess my son was about 4.5 at the time. So it's all that stuff piled up on everything else. Besides the emotional idea that you as a person are a failure, I mean, there's just a lot of gloppy shit on top of that. And for me, there was almost not enough time to sit back and reflect upon it because I had things I needed to do.
So you were kind of coping by handling what needed to be done right away and your basic living situation and survival. Right. And then when...
Go ahead. There were times, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no.
There were times where I was like, I don't feel comfortable taking this wedding ring off.
Yeah.
Or sitting at a bar, having a beer, looking around going, fuck the single world again.
Right.
Holy shit, this is going to suck.
So during that time, once you got through getting through the survival mode and everything, and you were going through this process of divorce, when you finally got settled in your place and stuff, what happened next? Like, how did you get through? Did the emotions finally kind of come through?
Sorry, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Like, at what point did you really start feeling?
Well, again, that really took a lot simply because there was so much going on.
Yeah.
I had bought the apartment in the Wall Street location. Robin and I, because of our situation, we both had our names on each other's mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
For financial reasons.
Right.
So that means the board had to effectively interview both of us. Now, I told Robin, I said, look, just answer their questions and get the fuck out of there, please. I need this apartment. I can't have you say anything, because in our first apartment that we bought together in Battery Park, she almost fucked up the closing.
Oh, no.
I just told her, I said, look, you've never been to a closing before. This is my third closing. Here's how it works. You sit down, you shut up. I put pieces of paper in front of you. You sign them. You only answer a question if someone asks you specifically. Otherwise, you keep your mouth shut. That's why we have all these lawyers and everything around. 5 minutes into it, the lawyer asked the couple who's selling the apartment a question, and Robin says, they don't speak English. They speak Chinese. And fucking everyone turns around her at the table and almost like, what the fuck are you doing? It was stunning.
Wow.
Almost tore her head off. So, but before we got through the closing, when we were at the interview, when we at the interview of the apartment, she made it all the way through the final interview and then started talking about, well, what are you guys going to do with this building? I mean, I sell furniture. I'm in the high-end real estate. I walk out and the board member, who is my friend, said, your ex-wife almost fucked up the interview. I said, what happened? He tells me the story. She walked out and the board said, we're not going to sell to this guy, meaning me. And John, my friend, spoke up and said, look, they're going through a divorce, okay? They're just going to have both names on mortgages. I know the guy's a good guy. He's not an investor.
Right.
That's it. So I get the apartment. I'm starting to renovate it. And guess what happens? 9/11.
Oh, no.
I live 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center. Territory is in lockdown. My son is living on 18th Street, and I'm commuting, still working, getting police escorts to my parking spot and living at 3 Hanover Square, half under construction, because I can't get any materials into the zone to finish the renovation on my apartment. So I've got no drywall, no electric. Well, I had electric, but I had to put the wires together.
So
That's how
talk about some serious stress at this time.
So I went through about 2 years of that shit.
So your divorce happened right at the same time as 9/11, roughly.
Much. Yeah,
Wow.
it was. Well, it really started September 11, 2001. It was in the process of the downhill process, pretty much the turn of the century, New Year's Eve, 2000.
Right.
I spent 12 hours in Times Square. And things were like really shitty because she was just, I don't want to do anything. I said, nothing. I'm going to sleep early. Like, fine, if that's the way it's going to be. Put my son to bed. She went to bed and I went uptown.
Mm-hmm.
So the process was there. Yes, my divorce was kind of in its final throes during 9/11. I didn't want to sign paperwork. And then I found an attorney, and because see what happened was, I was fixing a wall unit in the apartment, and she walked in, and we had a tempestuous session, and everything was on edge, and she just like, I want a divorce. And I said, that's not a good thing to say to a man with a screwdriver in his hand. And then we started going into it. And then I find out that she has already sent these lawyers a $10,000 retainer out of our checking account.
Oh,
and I
geez.
was like, holy fucking shit. So I didn't look for an attorney for a while. And then she comes back to me and says, well, my attorney thinks that you should do to him as well. And this way we'll save money. I'm like, fuck you.
Wow. $10,000. That makes me feel very fortunate.
Oh, please.
Yeah, that's insane.
I gave my attorney $5,000, and I said, when this runs out, call me.
Yeah. So then once you got through your divorce and everything,
Right.
how did you feel once that was over and you were out of that situation?
Again, a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because I'm sad in that, my son was kind of in the middle of it. Sad that, the sort of camaraderie co-parenting with my son was not going to happen under the same roof. There was a certain emotional distance,
Mm-hmm.
and that changed over time. But initially it was just like, I don't give a fuck what's going on in your family.
Yeah. Did you start making immediate changes to like your lifestyle and what you were doing with your time? And
well, I was working, and one of the women I was working with, very friendly, we got along very well. She was just like, as the divorce was falling apart, she had become a good confidant because she had been through a divorce and a remarriage on her own. So she was kind of like, and she sets me up with a woman that I went out with before my final move out of my apartment. And so after my divorce, I kind of rolled into this other relationship pretty quickly.
how was that? How did it work out?
She was living in New Jersey. So she had 2 kids. She had been divorced. Her kids were like Asher, my son, would have been in the middle of her 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all the same age. So we had to like work out, weekends and shit like that. And she was breaking up with this other person and having problems sometimes with her ex-husband doing the right thing, picking kids up. But it was fun. We were having fun. It was fun. There was like this family camaraderie thing going on. Sometimes she'd be like, look, Brian, I got to do this. Can you watch the kids? Yeah. Sure. My son, they'd have sleepover things. So I was kind of like right back in the swing of it. I didn't want to marry this woman.
But you were comfortable.
Yeah, it was a comfortable. And that's when I kind of learned about, well, I knew about it, but I hadn't, like, female energy.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Like the comfort of having that around you?
Yes, the comfort of having positive female energy around me.
Right.
was just like a very cool sort of, I like this feeling.
Nice. Did you, how long did it end up lasting with her?
With her, about 9-10 months.
That's a long time.
Yeah, but
I mean, for me.
Well,
Yeah.
she was really looking for, she wanted to get married and, and kind of get like a foot under herself, so to speak. She was renting this little crappy place out in Jersey. And, she was just, she got to the point where she was like, well, why don't you just buy this house here in Jersey? And I was like, I'm not even finished doing the renovations on my apartment. Or I had just finished doing all these renovations. What are you, fucking nuts?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh no, finish up. So you're still finishing.
That, and we broke up. And then about 8 months after that, my friend who fixed this up originally said, so-and-so is crazy. She just married this other guy. And I was like, I don't want to know about it.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. So then I'm guessing, did you just end up going back into the single life and doing some dating? And when did you get into comedy? When did you start doing stand-up?
This is a good story. Okay. After Megan, I did some, at that time, online dating was kind of a joke, but people were like, I met online.
Right.
It still wasn't. For years, online dating was the ha, 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 ha. So I met some great people through Match.com. Great company, great dates, but nothing really solid. There was one for a while. I was in a depressive state. I wasn't a depression. I was just like, kind of in the blue. And she was a recovering alcoholic. And we went out for a while, and I just couldn't keep it up. I wasn't comfortable with myself. I was having some financial problems, and I was just like, you know what? I'm out of this. I'm sorry. I can't, I know how you feel. I can't say the same things back to you. I'm sorry. So that was kind of shaky. Then I got on my bicycle a lot. I had done bicycle riding in the past, but now I was really much more into it. I was active in the bicycle community doing like some of what they call traffic calming events, where basically we would ride anywhere in the city, any place. Like I missed one ride. I watched them ride on the FDR. I'm not talking like 2 or 3 bicycles. I'm talking about 30, 40, 50, 60 bicyclists.
Right.
Rolling into a particular area. Of course, traffic would stop. We used to take late night bike tours through Central Park. Anyway, going back, this woman, ex-alcoholic, sweet girl, but, she went to a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
So part of the tradition was like when we were dating, she was on the Upper East Side. If I stayed over for the weekend, we would always go to her Sunday night meeting. Mm-hmm. So, but I wasn't, and I just ended that. And that was that. Now I'm not off track. Still on, I'm swiping, but it wasn't Match.com. Mm-hmm. This is now 2005, 6-ish. Financially not doing where I need to be. Going through Match.com, meet this woman. She lives in Brooklyn. She's a little bit older than I am. She has a son the same age as my son. Cute, blonde, professional photographer. It's like, wow, this is cool. Okay. We hit it off. She's a Yankees fan. I'm a Yankees fan. She lives in Brooklyn. She's got a couple of cats, and her son, I'm in Manhattan. My son lives a few things away. She works in the city, and we are just having a great time. And financial, I'm kind of like on the edge here, and I'm finding some stuff. She's also in the same position, just started her own business studio doing professional photography. She was an art photographer. So she would like be it MoMA or be
Yeah.
it the museum. And she was for their catalogs
That's
and
very
other.
cool.
Yeah, it was very cool stuff. And she did some gallery stuff, books, a lot of tabletop books. People would come in and ask her, we're going to do this, but usually high end, a lot of high. I mean,
Were
she
you
thought
looking to get in a serious relationship by dating
oh,
online? Or like,
I was open to the idea that there was perfectly normal people doing stuff online at that time. Absolutely.
so you were looking for something serious, or were you just looking just to date around? Like, where was your mindset?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever been the kind of guy that just like, that's the goal, date around.
Yeah.
I realized that there were some individuals that's like, this is not going to be long term.
So you knew. Did you cut it?
But it wasn't just like, it was like, let's see. And because in other words, it wasn't getting serious, but I knew that this wasn't a long term with this individual.
And did you have, after your divorce, did you have a better idea of what you didn't want or what you did want?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, going back to the original comment of everything's there on the first date.
Yeah.
I guess I was more attuned to play a variety of different cards of what I had seen in past relationships, like drinking habits, personal things. Is something out of place? I mean, you can really learn a lot very quickly hanging out with somebody for a weekend to see what the priorities are. It's like, okay, wet towels on the floor. Got it. That's not a problem. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, so you just leave the fridge open and, like just stuff that you look at and you're like, okay, and you would think in your mind, is this a deal breaker?
Right.
Is this a deal breaker? And in some cases it was like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
Right. And and usually people are on their best behavior when you first meet. So sometimes
that's why when it comes down to the, spend a weekend with someone, you can't sort of keep the mask on.
The hair comes down a little bit and you kind of see behind the scenes. So when okay,
let's go back.
Go back, because you were talking about the art lady. Right.
Okay, so we are like, things are working out. I meet all her family. We're doing barbecues. I end up to be like the chef, the guy at the barbecue grill. Everything's going wonderful. A couple of Christmases. Then we're like, you know what? Maybe we should like sell both of our apartments and get a bigger place in Brooklyn. Okay, so this is kind of the mindset we're going in. She was looking for this holistic medicine guy, and it was one day, and he was on West 47th Street, and we ended up walking down the Diamond District on Saturday, but it's all closed. Mm-hmm. But we were looking at the windows, diamond. She was like, I would wear a diamond. And I was like, okay, we're moving.
Right, there's a little hint dropping going on.
No, well, yeah.
Maybe not so subtle.
There were even things said in intimate moments where, like, I could do this the rest of my life. So it was just like, okay, here we go. Now, because of the nature of what Ellen does, she has in the past always found a way to take her son to South America to help the indigenous South Americans or some poor Central American country build a house or a road or something.
Right.
And she always had several stories about stomach, the runs and throwing up and food poisoning and stuff like that, and the water and the whole 9 yards.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it is. Now,
yeah.
you also have to remember that Ellen was the fifth child of 4 sisters. Mm-hmm. Okay. Her father's in California. He's very old on her way out. Her mom is up in Vermont or something, driving a Subaru, and her sisters are all over the country. One is in New York as well. That summer, I noticed she's getting a little irritable. Now, I, meanwhile, in the process, as selling my apartment in Manhattan in the beginning of January 2008, I am looking to sell the apartment. I bought it for $166.
Yep.
I'm putting it on the market for $750.
Oh,
And the
nice.
market's okay with that. It's not out of the ballpark, but I'm not getting enough hits. There's another apartment in my building, same square footage. He's like 10 grand under me. I'm like, okay. So the guys start working around, and my real estate broker comes back and it's like, we're not going to find incrementally. We're not going to go down with this guy. We should just make a big jump, and that'll be done. Now, this is the negotiations from January of 2008 when it gets listed as time moves on. So about March, April, May, Ellen's like, I'm going to take this trip. I'm going to go to California, South America, blah, blah, blah. But something's not right. She's a little touchy about stuff, and I can't really figure it out, but there's a lot of shit going on. So I'm like, kiss, kiss, have a great time. She's not going to have a cell phone or no coverage. And at the same time, she had bought the brand new iPhone when it first came out. It's like this, $800. She dropped $800 like it was high. I mean, boom, I'll buy it. She bought it immediately. No questions asked.
Wow.
Right. She liked the high-tech stuff. Blah, blah, blah. She goes off on her trip. But I wasn't comfortable when she left. I was like, something's not right. Meanwhile, June 2008, I get a buyer. Boom, snag them, reel them in. Closed, done. And then I've got like no place to live. But I have several $100,000 in my pocket, so I'm not really too worried about it. Because I know I've been looking for apartments and I kind of know the neighborhood in Brooklyn, but I'm still looking. She's in South America or somewhere like that, and I am doing adventurous living in Manhattan. I bought a bicycle, and I lived in a pod for about 3 weeks at Madison and 53rd. It's like a big locker.
Oh, wow.
A pod, bathrooms are down the hall, very European.
Right.
Very European. Very hostile, but high-end hostile. I lived there for about 2 weeks, and I sublet an apartment on the Upper East Side, a studio, for about a month. And then out of the blue, Ellen calls me up, and she's very upset, and she's crying. And because in this time of my transition, I wasn't communicating enough with her. That's one of the things she said. Then she said she had, a very bizarre thing. It was very cryptic. She's like, something's not right. I don't know. I was talking to this guy and then I wasn't talking to him and we were trying to have breakfast and I couldn't pick up a phone. And she was crying and it was a mess. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm in New York. You're in South America, babe. I love you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
At that time, I was not working. I was like, boom, this is fine. So I'm bouncing around. I find a place in Brooklyn that's like 3 or 4 blocks away from where she lives, and that's cool. She comes back and she's really frazzled.
So so let me back up for a second. Why she's there? Is she dating somebody else or talking about?
It's her and her son. No, this is not. No, this is not emotional stuff.
Okay,
this is in turn for her. Something's going on and she doesn't know, and that's part of the confusion.
Okay.
September of 2008. She had come back. She was kind of frazzled and all over the place. I wasn't pushing her because a trip like this, she sees all her sisters, her mom, her dad, different coasts, flying around, Texas, blah, 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 South America. And she's just like, I need some space. And I was like, I understand completely. Not a problem. You're sitting down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I'm sitting on the sideline. The stock market and everybody else is fucking crashing into the toilet. And I'm sitting on the sideline, fat with cash.
Right.
Just walk over to the landlord and go, here's a year's rent. Boom. Okay? I don't know what I'm going to do for a year, but here's a year's rent. Have a good day. Off the top right there. September of 2009, school starts. My son is staying with me in Brooklyn for this weekend, and I'm going to take him to school. He goes to school. At that time, it was Lower Manhattan. I would just jump on a train from Brooklyn, boom, get into school, plenty of time. We get on the A train in Brooklyn, and there's Ellen's son, Willem, kind of a soft-spoken kid. I'm like, hey, Willem, how you doing? He's like, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Same age as my son.
Mm-hmm.
This was middle school. Yeah. Anyway, 7th, 8th grade, maybe. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Great. How's your mom? It's like, oh, she's in the hospital.
Oh, no.
What? Yeah, she's at NYU in the brain center. I'm like, what? I dropped my son off at school. I bolt to NYU. She is in the brain center intensive care at NYU with a head full of electrodes.
Oh, my goodness.
What the fuck is going on? Her sister pulls me aside and says, look, blah, 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 blah. Ellen had an incident. She called her other sister while she was talking to her sister, who is a pediatric cardiology intensivist at Texas Heart. That's her sister. She's talking to her at the phone, and she can't come up with the word table.
Oh, no.
She's having a conversation with her mom. She can't. She's like, I'm looking at this thing. I don't know what it is. It's here. Her sister's like, go to the emergency room.
Did she have a stroke?
Oh, baby, it gets worse than that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So she tells me the story. I'm like, what the fuck? She's like, well, they just did the MRIs. Now, her 2 other sisters are there already, the ones that are close enough.
Right.
One flies in, another one they're expecting to come in from the airport. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Surgeon rolls over, turns on the little x-ray box, takes the films, pops them under, boop. She's got a 4-centimeter tumor on the left side of her brain.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. The surgeon goes, I give her 24 months. Now, her sister, who got there, who was the Texas intensivist, who told her to who grabbed like a fly, she's like, literally, she's like, she didn't say these words literally. She said it very professionally, which was like, go fuck yourself. We're getting another opinion.
Right.
Now, as I said from the beginning of the story, she has 4 other sisters.
Right.
3 out of 4 are huddled around her bed. Now, Ellen's okay. I mean, it's not like she's sprawling or spitting stuff around. She's functional.
Right.
And they're just like comforting her and talking to her, kind of like, kind of scary. One part I left out here. When she had come back, and I didn't realize what had happened until all this shit in retrospect.
Right.
Okay. When Ellen was home for a short period, I was in Brooklyn. She had just gotten home from her trip, and she gives me a phone call. She goes, Brian, I'm kind of running a fever. Can you do me a favor? Of course. Tell me what you need. She's like, well, I don't think there are any aspirin in the house, and I'd love a great bowl of soup. Could you come over and do that? I was like, absolutely. Boom. I'm zipping over there. I find her kind of quivered up, wrapped in a comforter on an unmade bed, and she's running a fever. I'm like, okay, here's some aspirin, and it's not bad, and we're trying to talk a little, and she seems to be kind of like not with it, and part of the conversation, I am getting the dead silent treatment. And I'm looking right at her. I'm like, I feel her forehead. I'm like, oh, fuck, she's cooking.
Yeah.
I fill a bathtub with water.
Mm-hmm.
I strip her down, and I put her in the bathtub, and I start, because now she's not spoken. She has spoken nothing. And I'm like, I remember this happened to my sister once when she was young. They start to hallucinate because of body temperature. So I'm like, what's your name? Who you with? Who you? I do this for about 45 minutes till she kind of comes out of it. I dry her off. I redress her. I put her in bed. You want the soup? It's right here. Is everything okay? She's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel better now. Thanks. Okay, fine. Bye. And that was that. Fast forward. She's now been told, her sister has been told, this surgeon gives her 24 months to live. Her other sisters are around the bed, and I'm sitting there on the foot of the bed going, there's no room in this picture for me at all. I am non-existent.
What do you mean? Why did you feel this way?
Everything. Imagine 4 sisters learning that their baby sister is going to die.
And then you feel left out of this complete
Left out.
family.
That was on the top 10 list of things of anybody. So I kind of gathered myself up. I went back and forth a couple more times to the hospital over the next few days. They were like, we're taking her out of here and her sister was like, we'll travel the country to find the specialist to save you. And I was kind of like, okay. And I remember this very succinctly. I walked out of NYU Medical Center and I was facing west. And I said to myself, holy shit, I've got to go get a big tattoo and start doing stand-up comedy. Don't ask me why. Those are the 2 things in my head. Life is too short. I am not going to do things according to anyone's book anymore, because here I am at age 52 and I don't have shit. I live in Brooklyn by myself now. Probably the last woman I'm ever going to love is going to die in 2 years, and I'm unemployed. So everything is gravy from this day forward. I've got a bunch of cash in my pocket. I could probably live a couple of years without working, but what the fuck then do I do? And I was like, fuck it. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm out. And I went to Broadway Comedy Club. There was no school there at the time. I ended up going to ACI. I tried to see Ellen occasionally when she was in town. She was doing chemo up on 33rd Street in Park. When she wasn't doing chemo, her sister was flying her around the country. A guy popped into her life but this was really bizarre. He had known her in the past, and he had comforted like 2 wives through deaths like this. I mean,
oh my God.
I think it was some kind of like, I know you're going to die, but that's why I love you. Some kind of weird shit like that. It was very bizarre. He just kind of popped into the scene. I saw her once or twice again. I was back in therapy, strict Freudian therapy, on the couch shit.
So this had a huge effect on you in so many ways with her.
Oh,
absolutely.
Matter of fact, I was told, I got a phone call from her sister the day Ellen died, and I went to an open mic.
Oh my gosh.
And just kind of got on stage and opened with, just got a call. My girlfriend has died.
Wow.
22 months she lived.
So
she does blame the iPhone, by the way.
She what? The iPhone?
Yeah, she blames it.
She blames the iPhone for this, really?
Absolutely. She bought the first, she was like, day one, boom, she had that thing. And she always held it to that side of her head. And so whenever I hear those little stories about people using cell phones, too much radiation, you get a brain tumor, I'm like, nah, it could have been. It could have been.
Right. So,
but in any case, that's kind of,
So first, I'm so sorry. This is...
I've worked it out in many ways. I try and work her shit into my comedy sometimes. Facebook had just kind of started up. My son was on Facebook, but under a different name. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I was like, hey, Asher, you know this thing about Facebook? And he was like, yeah, Dad, I'm on it already. I was like, what? He's like, is that okay? And I looked down and I said, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And so she had just sort of kind of gotten on it. And that was that.
So on the day you heard of her passing, you went to an open mic and opened with that. And I know I've been to mics where comics have had a day like that. Maybe not so quite like that, but crazy stuff has happened.
I didn't know
And
what to do, Leanne. I
I
did not know
know.
what to do. I was just like, I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but there was always in my time of schedule, like, can
Yeah.
I see you this week? Can I, how are you feeling? What's going on? Yeah. And so I had some other conversations with her sister before then. She was like, how's Ellen doing? It's like, well, she said you were sending her some texts and she can't read the texts that well anymore because the tumor had kind of worked its way to the back part of her brain. This guy who popped out of nowhere was taking her up to Massachusetts and just plugging in. There wasn't much they were doing
Right.
after surgery because the surgery was not effective.
Well, but you bringing up the fact that you went to the mic, and it resonates with me because going through tragedy and stuff, I don't know. I think there's a lot of us in comedy that we find such comfort in it by being in those rooms and doing it.
And I figured out what that is. And most rooms that allow you to say whatever you want and feel on stage out loud in public, it's not in your head, it's out there, and people are going to react to it. And that's the cathartic emotional support that a lot of people in real life don't get because I can't go on stage and you may have people clap, they may cry, they may laugh, they may just like, it ain't a big deal, but it's an opportunity for you to like expose the raw nerve and kind of say, does anyone else have anything like this? Can you relate to this?
And more than likely the answer is yes.
Oh,
absolutely.
Leanne, when I got into comedy, I was just like, I'm not a misfit. These are misfits. These other people around me. Oh my God. Yeah, but it's people. And then when you start to run into, civilians.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're just like, you're an uptight dickhead.
It's so true.
What is wrong with you?
Well, I just remember, I ran a mic for 7 years, and there were nights where people came in and told there are nights where everything's laughter and ha ha, of course, because it's a mic, but there were those nights where people would come in with truth, like the real life. You can't ignore real life. And as a performer, I think the key to really engaging, to being a part of performing, to put yourself in it, you have to be present. And the only way you can do that is to be truthful with yourself and to be in the moment.
You have to be authentic.
It's authentic. Thank you. You have to be authentic, and you have to
because people can smell fake.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, no matter how much you worked hard on a joke, you think it's the greatest joke of all time, and it just sucks the air out of the room, and it's not authentic. And you can tell an authentic joke because it clicks and it hits, and people are like, yes, I can see you. Real quick story about that. Someone say, yes, I can see that happen. Alex Barnett?
No.
Okay. Alex Barnett. Nice guy, did open mics. He lives up in Tarrytown. I was always curious how comics in the beginning, when I started, how they organized material. Some guys had like 3x5 cards. Some guys just had notebooks. People typed them up. And I remember we were doing open mic downtown, and he had his work in front of him. And I kind of leaned back and looked over his shoulder to see how did he arrange things? How were things set up? And he kind of hides the paper from me. And I said, Alex, I'm not trying to steal your jokes. After all, I'm not a short Jewish guy married to a black woman. It's not going to work for me. And that's who he was. All his jokes were, I'm a short Jewish white guy married to a black woman. I was like, I can't do those jokes on stage. No one would believe me, right? It doesn't ring true. But I can tell jokes about divorce or age-related things with the young kids are doing, and people look at me and go, absolutely, that works.
Right, because you're being true to yourself.
Because, and that's what I mean. Sometimes every joke that rings true and hits is because it's authentic. I can't go into an audience of 20 and 30-year-olds and talk about divorce and marriage and expect for anything to hit.
You know what? I have the same exact problem. They look at me like, "Oh my God, like that's horrifying." Like,
as well as the fact that they can't relate to it.
Exactly, it's
There's
so
nothing
true.
to relate to. But on the same side, I can't go into a more mature audience and talk about, drinking too much or getting high,
Yep.
or sort of, party. People look and you're like, what the fuck? And nothing relates. They glaze over. So that's part of the authentic mix of things as well, is, presenting yourself appropriately. And if you do, you will learn how to hit with the young kids and how to hit with the elders, because you're being true and giving them something they can relate to, because everyone can relate to something.
Yes. No, that's
so
really spot on.
Yeah. So basically, I've gone through enough roller coasters to know when the dips are coming, and preparing for them, as well as where the high points are, and enjoying those. I just had a birthday this month.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, so I'm in a new bracket, as they say.
When you fill out those little forms.
Fuck you. That's another joke that I'm working on. I like it. I kind of think I'll give you the joke now. There's a lot of age discrimination going on out there. But it's in little subtle ways. You don't really realize it. I bought a water pick recently. Yeah, I'm the kind of guy who uses a water pick. I bought a water pick, and I kind of got nerdy about it. And I started filling out it comes with those product registration cards, for the extended warranty. Send in this card, you'll get a special offer. Fuck it, I'll fill it in. Name, address, phone number, blah, blah, blah. Then it goes male, okay, sex male. What's your age? And I'm looking down the categories, and it's 18 to 24, 25 to 35, 45 to 55. And that's it.
That's it. It stops. They figure you don't have, you know why? Because they figure you don't have any teeth to pick.
There you go. I'm like, fuck you. I'm not buying this product again, you bastards.
People over 55 don't have teeth, Brian.
What the hell? Or they're thinking, you know what? This will probably be the last water pick you ever buy. We don't care.
Right.
Fuck you. I was like, it sucks. I hate those boxes things.
You don't need a warranty. Your pick's going to outlast you.
Please. So I'm in a bracket. So when it comes to dating, every once in a while, I'll get I point to my phone. I'll get a Tinder alert. Boop. Hey, someone really liked you. I'll be like, okay. But honestly, where I am right now, I'm trying to get my business going, and my business prospects are as bleak as the sky is here in New York. Yeah, it's a little shaky for me right now. I'm trying to get up and do more stand-up comedy. I'll go out maybe Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. That's pretty much it. In an aspect of being social.
Yeah.
If I go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's because I'm either doing an open mic or trying to get some editing work done in Manhattan Cable. I'm trying to put some shows on the air there. I've had a couple shows on, but that's a lot of work. But that's another little sideline that I'm doing as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's Manhattan. It's public access, but they teach you how to do everything. So it's professional, regular TV studio equipment.
That's fantastic.
It's pretty cool. And you're in a real studio, working the boards, switching the cameras, staging the whole thing, green screen. You know Hector Luis, don't you?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay. At Maui Taco open mic years ago, and then later at O'Hanlon's.
Trying to think.
Anyway, him and I shoot a lot of comedy shows at Manhattan Cable.
Nice.
They bring in an audience. For like an 8:00 show. It's a TV studio. We do a 3-camera shoot. It's pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
The DJ, yeah. So that's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I've got to edit stuff. Like, a matter of fact, change the schedule. Next Thursday, I'm sitting down with Hector to do some editing, put in graphics and, names and titles, and tighten it up and edit it and put it on the air.
Well, congratulations. You've got a lot of good
fun.
stuff going on.
It's fun. Yeah.
You got stuff. So thanks.
I do need to get laid more often, though. I do have to.
That was my next question.
Sure, any of your listeners are thinking otherwise. No. Yeah, that's still a priority.
Well, you are on Tinder. So
that's pretty
funny. And you go to Mike, so clearly, it's going to happen. So, so this has been awesome. You've shared so much. So
yeah, I'm in a shitty mood.
Thank you for that, because wow.
It's a good story. And I have to remind myself of it sometimes. And I think this is maybe when you get this is good divorce thing. After divorce, you're still going to live. You're going to be alive.
Yeah, you're living proof. I mean, you outlasted the age range on a water pick registration, so this is good. So out of all of this, good things do come of divorce. What do you think is the best thing that came from yours?
Came out of my initial divorce and all the relationships before and after. This was something a friend of mine said to me and I thought about this when I told him I was getting married. He was like, "Oh, you're getting married. That's great. How'd you know she was the one? I don't think I can find the one." And I said, "Look, finding the one is pretty easy. It really depends on how much you want to put up with. If you want to put up with a lot of shit, get married tomorrow. You will put up with tons of crap that you weren't aware of. But if you don't want to put up with any shit at all, you could be lonely for a long time." Mm-hmm. You got to remember, what are you bringing to the party as well? So sometimes you've got to look at a situation and go, you know what? Is that going to be a deal breaker? Can I live with this? Can I put up with this? And if so, how am I going to change myself, to be more accommodating? Okay, you know what? I'll pick up my clothes more often. I won't sit around and put my feet up on the furniture. And a lot of people, it's like sometimes those little things make the other shitty habits not as bad.
Yeah. So kind of like what you think you're walking away with is maybe you got a better sense of yourself and it made you a better person in that sense of what you're bringing?
Yeah, because I can be much more tolerant of other people and what their thing is, because I'm going to expect them to be tolerant of my shit. And it's just like, okay, that's the way you do this. I brush my teeth in the shower. I hope that's not a problem. I have one girlfriend. She decided that why would I use the toilet when I'm in the shower already? And I was like, that makes sense to me. I was just like, what the hell? Why not? In other words, it wasn't like, oh my God, it's like, it makes sense. It's all going down the same,
Right.
Anyway, so who cares? So you become a little bit more tolerant, and that gives you the ability to be more tolerant even outside of your own relationship.
Right.
I mean, it's different when two people are in a relationship. They're like dealing with each other's stuff and moving it forward and trying to stick. There was some actor who talked about, his relationship was like a rowboat, and we're just going to, keep pulling people into our boat. He's talking about his whole family and stuff like that. But the point is, it's easy to kind of, have your own little thing going. But then how does that interact with the people around you? Whether they be in-laws or mutual friends or just how you interact with the rest of the world if you see yourself as like this couple. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you learn that when you go to all the little kids' parties with kids, when you interact with other parents and there's school involved and things like that, where you're like, hey, believe me, I was a big soccer dad. I was a big baseball dad. At one baseball game, I was yelling at the umpire. And Robin comes over. He's like, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, it's a baseball game. Yeah, you're supposed to yell at people.
And you're in New York, so come on.
Exactly. Thank you.
Are you telling a New Yorker not to yell? Are you kidding me?
And a baseball game.
Yeah, come on. Come on.
No. So, marriage makes you a better person.
And divorce
makes you an even better person.
There you go. So if you had any advice,
it comes down to this. After a divorce, you're kind of like, oh, I am a shithead.
It's true.
Oh,
like,
God,
I'm not as perfect.
because everyone's got that little secret place in their brain that says, you know what, you are a piece of shit. It's like, yeah, shut up.
But don't tell the rest of the world, right? So if you had one piece of advice for listeners on this who may be going through a divorce now or just getting out of one, what would you tell them to look forward to?
Take one day at a time. Don't look too far down the road. Don't think too far in the past. Don't have regrets of I should have done this or I should have done that. You know, be positive. You're not going to die, but things will change. Your life will change. Absolutely. And don't look at it as bad or good. You know, that kind of relative and compared to what? You know, some countries you get divorced, they cut off body parts and shit. You know?
Yeah.
It's not cool. It's really not. I mean, I've heard stories and I've experienced stuff where, you know, people deal with crushing financial blows. Doesn't have to be that way, but these people dealt with it and, you know, continue to live every day. You can't live in regrets of things you did in the past. You can only be here and now and have a plan for the future and have a positive plan. You know, whether it's you need to do something for yourself, whether you need to take care of business. No, you will survive. It will be different. It's supposed to be different. You just ended a major adult relationship with legal and financial implications. It's supposed to be fucking different, okay?
Yeah.
But you can be up to the challenge. No one's ever died from being divorced. Some people may not have survived that well afterwards, but no one's died. So you live, you learn, you love, and you move on again.
As you did. And you're doing well. I mean, heck, you're on Tinder. You've lived above the water pick age range limit. You're doing well, so you're living proof. But this has been great. And I'll be sure to post your contact information in the show notes and everything for everybody to see.
Thanks for listening. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I'll talk to you really soon.
I hope so. Thanks.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.